Okay, now we're going to do a little CC&R, color correction and retouching, on our dessert glass. Where we left it last, we had our spot color varnish on there, and I'm going to throw that channel away, because what happens is I turn it off here, I come back over here, and I start working on things, and as soon as I hit a mask layer, it turns back visible again. So in channels, I don't know why that happens. I'm just going to throw that away because it's easy to make. I can remake it again because remember I have my path, my outline path. Okay, so we put this dessert glass into this new environment and it looks wrong. It used to look more comfortable sitting in its old environment, but when I do this, something about it looks odd. The foot's too light, seems a little dark here. This is just very disturbing. It looks like ink in the glass, which used to be its old transparent glass shining or showing the background through. Okay, so we're going to do some retouching, color correction and retouching to fix that stuff up right there. So let's start with just doing some general spotting and cleaning up on the glass itself. So right on the layer above the foot here, as I click there, I'm going to select the new page or the new layer, and it gives me a new blank layer, and that's where I'll do a lot of this little spot cleanup stuff. There's a few ways you can do this. One, we looked at the clone tool, and that's a good way to do it. I set my cursors back to normal so I can see. I am left bracket keying to make that smaller. So if I go up here, I can see that the hardness is about in the middle, 50-ish. You'll just set it however you want to. But I want to get rid of some of the things that are disturbing, like this line right here. That bothers me. So I'm going to go down a little bit smaller, zoom in, option click, and then move over and click on that line. Oh, I have my opacity set for 40, so I'm going to slide that up to 100. It's not covering it completely. There we go. And see, wow, it clones from one area to another. That line bothered me. Some of these other little lines in here where the fruit makes contact with the glass, they look like hairs. We don't want that. When I clone from here to here, I got a dark line because I'm cloning from a darker area to a lighter area. We see it both as red, but believe me, it's a different color. So I have to get down more in alignment with the same color before I start cloning, and that way I won't get the weird light or dark line. Okay, and let's see what else. All this kind of junk up on the rim here, if we just line ourselves up and be very patient about it, we can just hit those things one at a time and kind of knock them out of there. All right, they don't have to be perfect because, I mean, there's a lot going on in this picture, really. If I threw something really wacky in there, you'd see it. But I'm just trying to get rid of the obvious, distracting, looks like dust, looks like hair, things that are not appetizing. If you don't want to eat it, then it shouldn't be in this picture. All right? So I can go around like that and do a lot of this. There's another way to get rid of spots that are kind of isolated, like this chunk of whatever this is right here. That floating whatever that is, and that's what the healing, the brush, the spot healing tool. If I go over here, it's usually the top one. Spot healing brush tool is what it's called. If you don't see it, you can click down. All of these ones that have those little triangles in the bottom corner, if you click and hold, you'll see all the other brushes that are available there. Okay, so the spot healing brush, I scale it the same way. I'm going to scale it down because it's too big right now. I want it to, if I look up here, I want it to be set to content aware and to sample all layers. So I want to make sure that those two things are on. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is zoom in here and I kind of just paint over that area and it fills it with whatever is around it. And it tries to do a good job of that. And that's why it works on isolated things. But if you went along the edge of this to try to clean this up, it wouldn't fill it with, it doesn't know that's the direction that that glass is going. So this you have to use the clone tool on. But for all these things that are out here in the field, these little spots, You just give it a little zap and it just fills it right in. So it's a nice way to go and get these things cleaned up really quick. This milky crud on the edge. See, now this is going to be too close to the edge, I think. Yeah, that's not so good. Sometimes it's a good starting place, but anyway, I'll come back and get that with the clone tool. All right, so I'll line up this direction and I'll start cloning that way and see how much smoother that looks. I want a little bit more of a soft edge. Softness there. And then this junk going the other way, I want to do the same thing. I don't want it, the glass doesn't look like it was washed very well, or the guy with the strawberries was sloppy. I don't know. But I just want to clean up all this stuff, more or less. Okay? So, that's how you do it. It is time consuming, and the more patient you are with it, especially when you're starting out, the better it's going to look. So, expect to spend some time working on it, and you'll get better as you do it. That red thing right in there, that's a little distracting. Now, this is probably a little nitpicky, but for the size that it's going to print, a lot of this stuff is just going to blend in. Now that I have it all in one layer, that's what it looks like, all those little blobs on that layer. And I got that by clicking the eyeball while I'm holding down the Option. And that turns off everything except the layer that I'm clicking on. Well, of course, the folder that it's in. Okay, so if I turn it off and on, you can see that the glass is starting to get cleaner. Nice. All right, so next, let's go see if we can do something about this black yuckiness right here. There's a lot of ways to approach this, and I tried a couple of them and they didn't work out so well, or they were too complex. So we're going to do something simpler, but it's still a little bit advanced. I'm going to use, my pen tool because I like it. And I'm going to go around this stuff. I'm even going to go down here because I don't even know what that stuff is. I'm going to avoid letting that white edge show on the edge of the strawberry and there. And then up here, the same thing. I'm going to take it from there all the way out to here, I think. Whoa, that was crazy. I'm holding down the Command key now so I can grab that handle and kind of control this and put it where I want it. I'm thinking right there looks good. Then I'm going to hit the Command key and, the Option key, click that so that I can come back this direction. Remember that from our pen tutorial. Alright, so you can be careful than I'm being right now. And I'm just going to take that little chunk of whatever that is out of there. I don't want that white thing to show up so much, so I'm just going to include it in my mask. Now I'm going to go to Pass, double click, give it a name, hit OK. Now if I make a selection of this, I'm going to go back to my layers. You can see the marching ants. I am going to make a, this is my retouching layer, so I'm going to call it Retouch. I'm going to make another layer, and I'm going to paint on this one. So I'm going to take the paint brush now, which is huge, and make it smaller. It's set for 100%. I'm going to leave it at 100%. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this background color, and I am going to spray it in there. All right. Now I can hide those marching ants because they are distracting. So Command H should hide those ants, or I think under Select somewhere you can hide Selection. Selection, hide selection. I don't know where it is. Command H. There you go. So now I'm working just on this layer. I have those two things in there, and that looks a little too transparent. It looks like there's no glass there at all. See, look at this side, and even if you look at the former background, it's not completely transparent. We don't see the edge of the shelf or any of that other stuff through there, but there's some reflection from the inside of the glass and other ambient light. So we're going to introduce some of that on the right side of the glass. So just by sampling, and first of all, I am going to make my brush smaller, left bracket. I'm going to turn the opacity down so when I paint it doesn't go full blast. So about down to 40. Experiment. Option, I'm going to select this color right here and do a little, actually I'm going to harden up the edge of that brush to about, let's say 70-ish. Okay. Now That looks better. See how it's starting to look like the other side a little bit. Let me just grab some different colors here. A little white in here. Maybe down. Maybe a little softer this time. And you just keep working until you get something that looks, you know, like the strawberries are reflecting in there, or there's some other stuff going on. And eventually, it'll look right. Because you're just kind of making this up, right? And we are going to, let's do one more streak of this white. A little smaller, but like here-ish, or here-ish. I'm just hitting Command Z to go back and forth. And sometimes it also helps if I back away from it so I can see what's kind of going on. I'm going to turn the opacity down a little bit farther for that white streak. Right there. Oh, that was wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, another thing I can do to help put some of the reflection back into it is use the clone tool at a diminished opacity and a bigger size, and pick a piece from the same side of the glass, like here, and then just paint across here. And see how that kind of looks like reflection from the inside of the glass now. Okay, it doesn't have to be exact or perfect, but can you see how this is starting to make more sense than that now? Good. All right, one last thing. Or two last things. One thing is the side of the glass looks really dark. So I'm going to do a color correction. I'm going to leave it on that layer so it affects everything, but we're going to do a color correction with curves. Oh, I have my mask on here because I still had that selected. So I'm just going to drag that to the trash can and say, yes, please delete my layer mask. Now it's going to lighten the whole thing, but I want to lighten the whole thing till this side looks better, okay? It also needs to be a little bit bluer, so I'm going to go to red for blue. Weird, huh? And go up just a little bit, okay? So there's before and after that correction, but I don't want it on the whole glass, just on this side of the glass. So now I want my mask, and if I hold down the Option key, it'll give me a reverse mask instead of a clear mask. Now all I have to do is paint with my paintbrush, big fat paintbrush, 100% opacity, and all the way on soft, rank, hardness 0, and then it's going to paint, I need with white, foreground color white, so I switched them by touching that arrow. It's going to paint a hole in that mask. See how that worked? Now that side's not so dark and harsh, okay? And the same thing we're going to do for the foot. The foot looks just way too light down there, okay? So here we go. A new curves, not curves, Command Z, back up. A new gradient, curves, there we go. And we're going to darken that up. We're going to darken the foot up, and the foot's looking a little pink, so let's give it some green. Just the other direction. That looks a little bit better. Okay, and the same thing. It came with a mask this time, but I didn't have anything selected, so it was big and blank. Now all I have to do is paint out the part, with black, of course, not with white, because I'm painting black to block it out. At 100%, I will just get rid of everything on the top here, like so. And now, let's back off a little bit. This looks, well, time's up. This looks a little better than it did before. It looks like it belongs in that background a little bit better. Okay? So, yeah, you heard the bell, so my time is up. See you next time.